offer a lot of insight to people. This is uncomfortable for a lot of us to talk about race. So how can we use what is happening right now as an opportunity to start a conversation, to start a dialogue with friends or colleagues, especially those of a different race?
Yeah, Janelle, thank you for the question. This is a watershed moment for all of us. This is a bit of a tipping point. And so what I'm saying to people is that be honest, be open with our painful history. It's ours to own. Give permission to speak truth to power. Tell our story of race and racism, right? Say that Black lives do matter and that doesn't mean that all lives don't matter, and have people to build the bridge. If our white brothers and sisters need to have this conversation, we also have to have them honor that they have experienced white privilege, right? And so what we want is we want allies for the long game, not the short game. So when the cameras are gone and we've passed through this moment, we want people, our allies, to stand up and speak up and show up with us. That means that we have to have truth, trust, and transparency that leads to transformational breakthroughs. And that means we can't quit. We've got to stay in the courageous conversation. If we don't stay in the conversation, then it'll be just like every other time, which is why people are so outraged and why we are still dealing with this structural and institutionalized racism. It's not just George Floyd, it's the years and years and years of pain that has come out of this social injustice and equity.
What I think what makes it so difficult for a lot of people too is that, yes, there is the message that needs to be communicated about, racial injustice, but it's also being compounded by the fact that we are seeing these protests, some of which are turning violent. We're seeing these images of looting. How do you explain to children the mistreatment of people and the unrest that we've been seeing across the country?
Well, we're honest with kids. Of course, it's got to be age appropriate, but children are smart. They're seeing it. I heard a child the other day that said that she was sad and she was mad. She was sad and mad because she couldn't go to her grocery store. So we've got to create an atmosphere for our children so that they can foster the trust in us. We've got to allow them to talk it out so that they're not acting it out. And we've got to distinguish fact from fiction. So there's a difference between looters and protesters. Protesters are the reason that many of us are in the positions that we are in back in the 60s and during the civil rights movement. There's nothing wrong with speaking up against injustice, but we have to allow our children to speak their truth to power as well. So as adults, we should tell our stories of injustice and ask them to share their stories, because in order to heal, you have to feel, but you cannot feel what you don't reveal. And that means that we've got to deal with all of our emotions. So give our children their permission to express their emotions and allow them to know that we're going to be there with them, not only to protect them, but to elevate them, have them have the pride in who they are. And then we can take action together, because there are a way that children can take action as well about these issues of race. And we want to raise up a generation that is able to speak truth to power. These young people that are out there protesting, they're making me proud, because they're not the looters. Those are the ones that are courageous enough to stand up for what is right and what is just, so that we can change this country to move it to a place where we do have equity for all.
And all of this is happening in light of what we've been dealing with the last few months, that is, the pandemic, a lot of people losing their jobs, the economy, and now this increased racial tension in the country. And so many people are saying they are just emotionally exhausted. What tips do you have for people who are trying to make sure that they are taking care of their mental health right now? Because I would imagine that is very important.
Yeah, our mental health matters, right? And in order to go back out there for this particular fight, and we're fighting two fights right now. We're fighting COVID-19 and we're fighting racism, right? So we've got to put our oxygen mask on first. We've got to honor that Black lives do matter. We've got to take care of ourselves through prayer and meditation and mindfulness. And we've got to also journal and externalize